The town of Black Hollow was shrouded in perpetual twilight. A dense, unnatural fog hung heavy in the air, clinging to the gnarled branches of ancient trees and obscuring the cobblestone streets. The sun never broke through the oppressive gloom, leaving Black Hollow trapped in an eternal state of dusk. The townsfolk moved like shadows, their faces etched with a deep-seated fear, their voices hushed whispers that vanished into the oppressive silence. Black Hollow was a place where whispers of a curse echoed through the empty streets. It was a curse that had stained the town with an unspeakable evil, a chilling secret that haunted every darkened corner. The townsfolk knew the truth, even if they dared not speak it aloud. They knew that darkness held a terror far greater than the shadows themselves. The air itself felt heavy, laden with an unseen menace. The silence was broken only by the creaking of rusty signs swaying in the wind and the distant howling of dogs, their cries filled with a primal fear. Even the most hardened souls couldn't escape the sense of dread that permeated every inch of Black Hollow. The buildings, once vibrant and full of life, now stood as decaying spectres against the oppressive sky. Their windows, like vacant eyes, stared out at the town, reflecting the fear that had seeped into the very foundation of Black Hollow. This was a town trapped in a nightmare, forever bound to the curse that haunted its every breath. The fear in Black Hollow was a living, breathing entity. It slithered through the narrow alleyways, clung to the damp walls, and whispered from the shadows. The townsfolk lived with it, breathed it, and allowed it to dictate their every move. No one dared to speak its name, but the knowledge of it was etched into their hearts. The elders, their faces like withered parchment, held the darkest memories. They remembered a time before the curse, a time when laughter echoed through the market square and children played freely in the streets. But those memories were faded and distant, like a dream slowly fading with each passing dawn. The younger generation, born into the oppressive darkness, had never known a world without fear. They grew up on tales whispered around flickering candlelight, tales of a monstrous creature that ruled the night. A creature they never dared to name, but whose presence they felt in every gust of wind, every creak of the floorboards. The whispers spoke of a time when the sun shone brightly upon Black Hollow, a time when the laughter of children filled the air. But that time was long gone, lost to the curse that now held the town captive. The townsfolk knew that the creature that haunted their nights was real, and they lived in perpetual fear of the moment it would claim its next victim. Billy Thompson, with his youthful arrogance and unwavering skepticism, refused to believe the tales that haunted Black Hollow. He scoffed at the whispers, dismissing them as mere superstition and folklore. While others cowered in their homes as darkness fell, Billy walked with a swagger, challenging the shadows with his disbelieving eyes. "It's all nonsense," he would declare, his voice echoing in the unnatural silence of the tavern. "Just stories to scare children and keep the townsfolk in line." His words were met with uneasy silence, a mixture of fear and disapproval etched on the faces around him. One night, fueled by bravado and cheap ale, Billy made a wager. He would climb Gallows Hill, the highest point overlooking Black Hollow, and spend the entire night there. A place shrouded in darkness and whispered to be the creature's hunting ground. The townsfolk watched with a mixture of dread and morbid fascination as Billy, his laughter echoing in the stillness, disappeared into the swirling fog that clung to the hillside. "You're a fool, Billy Thompson," Old Man Hemlock muttered, his voice barely a whisper. "You tempt fate with your disbelief. The curse of Black Hollow is real, and it doesn't take kindly to those who mock it." But Billy, lost in his own world of reckless bravado, didn't hear the old man's warning. He continued his ascent, his laughter swallowed by the oppressive silence of the cursed town. As darkness enveloped Black Hollow, Billy Thompson stood at the peak of Gallows Hill, the wind whipping at his clothes. The town below was a sea of shadows, the faint glow of candlelight doing little to pierce the oppressive darkness. He laughed, feeling a thrill course through him. This was his stage, his moment to prove the town wrong. But as the hours crawled by, a shiver ran down Billy's spine. The temperature had dropped, and the wind, now a low moan, sent chills down his spine. He looked up at the sky, but the thick fog obscured everything, leaving him enveloped in an unsettling silence. Doubt, like a seed of ice, began to bloom in his stomach. A rustle in the nearby bushes sent a jolt of fear through him. He spun around, his heart pounding in his chest. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice cracking slightly. The only response was the mournful sigh of the wind. He tried to convince himself it was just an animal, but the seed of doubt had taken root, growing with every passing moment. The fog around him seemed to press in, suffocating him with its icy touch. The darkness felt different now, heavier, as if something watched him from within its depths. He could no longer ignore the stories, the whispers that had haunted him since he was a child. They swirled around him now, their truth undeniable in the chilling embrace of the night. Section 5, Terror from the Sky. A terrifying screech, sharp and piercing, shattered the silence, echoing across the hills. Billy's blood ran cold. He spun around, his eyes frantically searching the darkness, but the fog obscured everything. The screech came again, closer this time, filled with a primal rage that made his knees weak. The fog above him stirred, swirling in a vortex of darkness. Two fiery eyes, burning like hot coals, pierced through the gloom, fixing Billy with their malevolent gaze. He stumbled back, his heart pounding against his ribs as the creature descended. Its wingspan was immense, blotting out what little remained of the night sky. Its feathers were the color of midnight, each one razor-sharp. The creature was a grotesquely beautiful nightmare, its presence radiating an aura of power and ancient evil. Billy, paralyzed with terror, could only watch as the monstrous bird, its eyes blazing with predatory hunger, descended towards him, its talons outstretched, ready to seize him in a grip of death. He tried to scream, but no sound escaped his lips. He was frozen, trapped in a nightmare brought to life. Section 6. Claws and a blood-stained beak. The Bloodwing, its colossal form descending upon him, unleashed another ear-splitting screech. Its beak, stained crimson and tipped with a wicked curve, opened in a silent snarl, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. The stench of death, a putrid mix of blood and decay, washed over Billy, forcing him to gag. Its talons, tipped with claws that could rend flesh from bone, closed around him, their grip inescapable. Billy screamed as he was lifted from the ground, his body flailing helplessly in the creature's grasp. He caught a glimpse of the town below, the faint lights flickering like dying stars, but no help would come from there. The creature, its eyes gleaming with savage hunger, began to ascend, carrying Billy into the heart of the swirling fog. He struggled against the creature's grip, but it was no use. The Bloodwing was too powerful, its grip on him as inescapable as the curse that held Black Hollow captive. As the creature disappeared into the darkness, its screech echoing across the hills, it left behind a silence more terrifying than any scream. The fog settled back over Gallows Hill, swallowing the last traces of Billy's presence, leaving only the faint scent of blood and the chilling knowledge of what had transpired. Section 7. Silence in the Market Square. The following morning, an unnatural silence blanketed Black Hollow. The market square, usually bustling with activity, was deserted. Stalls stood abandoned, their wares untouched. The townsfolk remained shuttered in their homes, fear a palpable presence in the stillness. They had heard the creature's cries during the night, felt the tremors in the earth as it descended upon Gallows Hill. Whispers, hushed and fearful, began to circulate through the town, spreading like wildfire through the empty streets. They spoke of Billy Thompson, his arrogance and disbelief, and the price he had paid for defying the curse of Black Hollow. The elders, their faces etched with a grim understanding, nodded knowingly. They had warned Billy, but their words had fallen on deaf ears. The curse was real, and it demanded respect, even from those who refused to believe. The silence in the market square was a testament to the fear that gripped Black Hollow. It was a fear that ran deeper than any superstition, for it was born of experience, of the knowledge that the creature that haunted their nights was real, and it showed no mercy. Section 8. A Grisly Discovery. As the fog began to lift, a group of men, their faces pale with apprehension, ventured towards Gallows Hill. They carried lanterns to pierce the lingering shadows and ropes to recover what they feared they would find. Their footsteps were heavy, their silence a testament to the grim task ahead. Their worst fears were confirmed. At the top of the hill, where Billy Thompson had stood defiantly the night before, they found only shreds of his clothing, torn and stained with blood. The ground was scarred with deep gashes, evidence of the creature's powerful talons. The men stared at the gruesome scene, their faces a mixture of horror and grim acceptance. There was no need for words. The evidence was clear. Billy Thompson had met a gruesome end, another victim claimed by the curse that haunted Black Hollow. One by one, the men turned away, their eyes downcast, their shoulders slumped with a burden of fear they knew they would carry for the rest of their days. They descended the hill, leaving behind the remnants of a life taken too soon, another grim reminder of the darkness that held their town captive. Section 9. The Shadow Remains. Life in Black Hollow resumed, but it was a hollow imitation of its former self. The fear that had always lurked beneath the surface was now a constant companion. The whispers continued, but they were tinged with a new level of terror, a deeper understanding of the price of defiance. The creature's presence lingered, a palpable weight that settled over the town. The townsfolk went about their daily routines with a sense of dread, their eyes constantly scanning the skies, their ears attuned to any sound that might herald the creature's return. The name Billy Thompson became synonymous with recklessness, a cautionary tale whispered to children to keep them from straying too far, from challenging the darkness that held their town in its grip. His memory served as a constant reminder of the price of disbelief, a chilling testament to the power of the curse. Black Hollow remained trapped, a prisoner of its own making, bound to the creature that ruled the night. The shadow of the Bloodwing stretched long and dark, a chilling reminder that some curses, once unleashed, can never be undone. Section 10. The Curse Endures. Years passed, but the memory of that night on Gallows Hill remained etched into the very fabric of Black Hollow. The creature, the Bloodwing, continued to haunt the town, its presence a constant threat that loomed over every aspect of their lives. Children grew up hearing the tales, their young minds filled with images of the monstrous bird with fiery eyes and blood-stained beak. The fear was passed down from generation to generation, an inherited burden that weighed heavily on their souls. The curse of Black Hollow endured, a chilling reminder that some evils cannot be outrun, only endured. The townsfolk existed in a perpetual state of fear, their lives forever intertwined with the creature that ruled their nights. And the Bloodwing, its hunger for terror satiated, continued to soar above the town, a harbinger of darkness, its shadow a constant reminder of the curse that bound them. The Bloodwing's screech, a sound that sent shivers down their spines, became a chilling reminder of their captivity. It echoed through the empty streets, a mournful cry that spoke of their shared fate, their eternal imprisonment within the grasp of the curse. Black Hollow remained shrouded in darkness, both literally and figuratively, forever bound to the creature that haunted its skies.